Hello, my name is Rob, and today I want to talk to you about this book, House of Leaves. Welcome to Rob's Randoms. On this channel, I make weekly videos about absolutely anything. It could be a food recipe or a DIY project, or today's topic, which is books. So yes, recently I read House of Leaves, the debut novel by Mark Z. Danielewski. So this is a very divisive book, but on Goodreads at the minute it has a score of 4.09, which is really good. That puts it on par with classics like A Christmas Carol or Sense and Sensibility. So I first heard about this book weirdly through the video game Doom. So Doom is the first-person shooter from the 90s, and it became quite a thing. There was a modding community where people could create their own levels for Doom, and a little while ago I was on YouTube and I found somebody talking about this wild new Doom 2 map called myhouse.wad, which is a very strange Doom map where you go into a house and the house changes and it's basically indecipherable, and it's fascinating and it's really cool, and basically it's based on this book. And the guy in the YouTube video gave a brief explanation of what this book is and why that Doom mod exists, and I kind of went, oh, that sounds cool, I want to read this. So I asked for this book for my birthday at the end of 2025, and I've just finished reading it at the start of February 2026. I am a slow reader, I'll accept, although this is, to be fair, a 700-page book. So in this video, I just want to talk about what this book is about, my thoughts on it, and why it has the legacy that it has. So originally I was going to read this book and then do like a short summary review after every 100 pages, which I did do. And then I got to the end of the book and kind of went, yeah, that's not the way of talking about this book, because there is a story in this book, but that's not the story of the book, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And so a really long video of me explaining everything that happened in this book isn't really doing it justice. So I scrapped that idea and I rewrote my entire review to talk about what this is about and then what it's actually about. So first off, I want to say I read this book because I had heard that it gets really weird with the formatting and the story becomes very dense and almost unreadable in times. And that really interested me. I thought, oh, that's such an interesting idea for a book to be written in a way that makes it hard to read. I thought that was really cool, and the formatting does change. So I don't know if you can see, but at the start of the book it's a normal book, and then it kind of turns into, well, just weirdness basically for a very long time. But it's not quite as indecipherable as I was expecting. The formatting is all over the place, and that's really interesting, but a lot of this book is normal, and it's actually quite a simple story once you get down to it, but it's everything you can read into it that's confusing. So I was a little bit disappointed that the book was actually quite straightforward, but that being said, I did still really enjoy it. So now let's start properly with a simple summary of the book. House of Leaves is told from a character called Johnny Truant. Now, Johnny Truant comes into the possession of a whole manuscript of years worth of notes and stuff by a guy called Zampano. Now, Zampano has been writing for a very, very, very long time about a film by a guy called Will Novitzin, otherwise known as Navy, and he made a film called The Novitzin Record. So this book is kind of 3 levels deep. It's by a guy called Johnny trying to compile all of the notes by a guy called Zampano about a film by a guy called Novitzin. Now, the book presents that as all being actually real. The film was real, Zampano was a real guy writing about it, all the references about the film, they're all real. That's the way the book suggests it. Although, as we go through, Johnny starts to suspect that actually, maybe some of that isn't true. Like, he's never seen the film. A lot of the people who are talking about it, they don't seem to have seen it. If those people even exist at all, he starts to notice inconsistencies, and he starts to suspect that maybe Zampano's just made the whole thing up. But at the same time, Johnny becomes obsessed with what the film is about, which is about this house, and he starts to become obsessed with it, and he needs to know the truth. So, the film itself, the Novitzin Record. So, Will Novitzin, Navy, is a photojournalist who is world famous for doing what he does, but he started to realize that he started to drift away from his wife and kids, and he really wants to get back and reconnect with them. So he quits his job as being a photojournalist, and he moves with his family to a house out in the countryside. But because he still has that creative spark inside him, he doesn't just go and live there. He sets up cameras all around his house, kind of like Paranormal Activity, so that he can record everything that's happening, and he wants to make a nice little documentary about reconnecting with his family and his kids growing up. However, Navidson starts to notice that there are some weird things about the house, and he starts to wonder if there's something going on. So he starts to check things about the house, make sure everything is correct, and in doing that, he measures the inside of the house, and then he measures the outside of the house, and he finds that the outside of the house measurement is actually 5/16 of an inch wider than when he measures it from the inside, even though they should be exactly the same distance. And that starts to drive him crazy. He starts to bring in his brother and his friends to kind of work out what is going on. And that is when the house starts to just warp and change and become a Twilight Zone-esque, very weird house of madness. So Zampano becomes obsessed with this film, and he starts writing about it and collecting all of these notes that other people have written about it. And he is going off his rocker because he is so obsessed with this film. And so he ends up with this massive pile of papers full of notes and references and stuff. So a pile of papers, or if you will, a house of leaves. So then Johnny comes into possession of this, and he starts to try and rearrange all these notes and make a cohesive story, but then he starts to become just as obsessed as Zampano was. So Johnny at the start of the story is this easygoing 20-something who goes out drinking, taking drugs. He falls in love with a stripper at one point, but then more and more the story of this book about this film just overtakes him, and he becomes obsessed, and all of the other stuff just falls away. He loses his job, he loses his friends, he doesn't care about anything else. He loses weight because he's not eating. He just cares about finding the truth about this film. And Johnny's story, which is kind of like the second story, this is told through footnotes as well, and some of these footnotes take up pages and pages and pages. His is quite a long story to be told just in the footnotes. And so that is a basic synopsis of this book. But now, what is this book actually about? So if you were to ask people who have read this book what they think it's about, you're going to get lots and lots of different answers. Some people say it's about academia. Some people say it's about love. Some people say, who cares? That book fucking sucks. Like, all of those are completely valid interpretations of this book. As I say, it's very divisive. Lots of people don't like this book because it's so dense and trying to understand it, because although there is a story there, that's only about half the book, and everything around that is kind of where the story actually is. So what is this book about to me? What meaning did I find in it? I think this book is about reading books. So this book is presented as an academic text full of references and footnotes, and there are often tangents going on talking about other academic things. But a lot of that isn't supposed to be read. So there's a bit early on in this book, and I didn't write down the reference for it, and I'm annoyed because I can't find it again now. But it basically is a footnote talking about how to read books. Basically saying if you spend too long getting obsessed with a book, that's the wrong way of doing it. But also if you're just skimming through it, not focusing on it, that's the wrong way of reading a book. If you spend too long or too short a time reading a book, you're doing it wrong. Then at the end of the book, there is a chapter basically just of random quotes, which is very weird. And a few of them are about reading. And one of them that I really liked said, it's the commentaries on Shakespeare that matter, not Shakespeare. Which is basically what this is saying. Like, there is a story in this, but that's not the important bit. The important bit is what people are saying about it. So a big part of this book is about basically how to read a text. What points are you supposed to skip over, and what points are you supposed to focus on? So there's a segment in this book where Zampano is talking about Navidson, who is a photographer, and Zampano says, to really understand Navidson, you really have to study these other photographers as well. And then we get a footnote that is 2.5 pages of just names of other photographers. Like that, it's just solid wall, just names of photographers. And like, are you supposed to read all of that? No, obviously that is something you're just supposed to skip over. However, there are several times in this book where it specifically says there are codes that you can crack in this book and you will get extra messages from that. Like, there is a lot more to this book. It explicitly is telling you you should be looking hard at certain sections of this book. So after I finished this book, I looked up online what other people thought of it, and a few people said that they think this book is a satire of academic texts, because this book is a very long text and it's full of references and footnotes, and some of those footnotes have footnotes, and there is so much here of people talking about what other people have said about this book. Then there's stuff like the photographer footnote that clearly you're just supposed to skip over. Or there's massive tangents in this going on about Greek history and stuff, something like mythological things that really aren't all that important. And they think that basically he is just saying, wow, isn't it really annoying when academics go off on tangents that aren't really about the book that they're supposed to be talking about? And I think that is valid. I think that fits in with what I'm saying about how to read a book. A lot of this is stupid, making jokes about how academics write books. But also there is a lot in this that the book is saying, no, you actually are supposed to be focusing on this, but you're supposed to skip over that other stuff. That's what I think this book is about. It's about teaching you how to read a book. So as I say, this book specifically says there are lots of codes in it that you can decipher and crack. And I'm not going to go massively into this, but there is one segment in this book that I really want to talk about that is all about the codes. So chapter 8 of this book is about a sequence in the film called SOS. And in this bit of the book, Zampano is saying the editing in that sequence in the film is actually mimicking the Morse code for SOS. So SOS obviously is the code that ships use when they're in trouble, because it's the quickest thing you could type out in Morse code, because in Morse code, SOS is 3 dots, followed by 3 dashes, followed by 3 dots. So in the sequence in the film, which is called SOS, it's all about somebody being trapped inside the house and needing help. But then Zampano says the editing of that sequence is also mimicking Morse code, because the editing of the sequence goes from a very quick shot to a quick shot to a quick shot, followed by 3 long sequences, followed by 3 very short ones again. So if you read the editing like Morse code, it is saying ... .. or SOS, which I think is really cool. But then you take a little bit further back and you go, oh, that is also referenced in the text itself. So in one of the footnotes, 117, Johnny Truant is talking about Zampano and how Zampano in one of his notes used the word fuck, which he says this is kind of out of left field because Zampano doesn't swear in the rest of these notes, but then suddenly he does use the word fuck and he's like, oh, that's really strange. Why did he use that? And then at this point in the book, Johnny is also going a little bit mad and he's saying, I'm really struggling to leave the house. And I think he says maybe Zampano just used fuck because he was also getting stressed out and he just thought, fuck. And then at the end of the footnote, Johnny says, fuck, 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 fuck me, fuck this, fuck you, fuck, fuck, fuck. And if we read that as Morse code, fuck, fuck, fuck is ... fuck me, fuck you, fuck this. They are slightly longer, so they would be dashes. So then it's ... dash, fuck, fuck, fuck. And then, so his saying fuck basically is also saying SOS. But then, if you zoom out again, you notice that footnote 117 is written in these little chunks of paragraphs. And some of those paragraphs are quite long, and some of those paragraphs are quite short. So if we translate longer paragraphs to dashes, shorter paragraphs to dots, then the footnote itself says in Morse code, fuck. That is insane. There are so many just hidden references and codes and stuff. And just in that little footnote, we've got 2 extra ones that is referencing the motif of the film in the book. It's so good. And this book is filled with stuff like that. It's incredible. I fully see why some people become so obsessed with this book. There is so much in it. It is such a cleverly written book. And I can't talk about this book without talking about the formatting. As I say, that's the reason I read it, because I was so fascinated with what that was going to mean and how that would change the reading of it. And yes, the formatting does go absolutely bananas in this book. Basically, when they go into the house and the house starts to change, the formatting of the book reflects the house's changes. So at some point in the book, they go into the hallway in the house and they find that it's absolutely massive inside. And the book reflects that by having single words on each page, emphasizing the space. At some point in the book, the characters get separated and some of them are on the floor and some of them are way up high. And so the writing there changes so that some of the pages only have text right at the bottom. That's the characters at the bottom. The other pages have text at the top. That's the characters at the top. It's so clever. There is also this thing the book does where anytime the word house is mentioned, it is written in superscript and it's smaller and it's shifted upwards. And there is no explanation for this. The book does not even reference that it is doing that. I only have a black and white copy. In the colored copies, every time the word house is mentioned, it's also written in blue for no reason. It's absolutely never explained. So it's just another thing that people can obsess about. So as I say, this is a very divisive book, and I fully understand why that is. I understand why somebody could become obsessed with this book and want to look at all the different hidden codes and stuff in it. But I also fully understand why somebody would read this and kind of go, oh, this is dense and confusing and I don't care that much, and just completely turn off from it and not really care. Fully understand anybody who has that thought about this book. For me, I did really enjoy this book. It was quite a dense read, but it wasn't quite as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. It was interesting, but I'm probably not going to become any more obsessed with it. I'm not going to become someone who obsesses over all the different codes and stuff. I found a few of them on my own. I looked up some of them, thought they were really cool, but I think I'm done with it now. It was interesting, but it wasn't the most incredible book that I was kind of expecting it to be. I think that's the thing. I put it on a pedestal before reading it. Shouldn't have done that. So it was fine. Maybe if I'd had no idea what this was about going in, I'd have loved it even more. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then please do click like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in me doing this kind of thing in the future. I do one video at the end of every year talking about the books I've read that year. But if you're interested in like my thoughts on specific books, then let me know in the comments, because I could totally do that. I did enjoy writing this. I enjoyed reading this book and kind of writing my thoughts on it, which I don't normally do. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. My name is Rob, and I will see you in another random video next week.